My name is Patrick Seman and I am a student in Bachelor of Arts program with CFA at Southern New Hampshire University. And I'm conducting this interview as part of my academic work. So I will record this interview and use the information. And this interview will be submitted to CFA so that my work as an interviewer can be evaluated. And this work will be used solely for this purpose. The interview information will be temporarily stored in the College for America online evaluation system, to which only the evaluator and CFA staff will have access.
I, Jernik, I give my informed consent to participate in this interview, to be recorded as part of the student academic evaluation.
Thank you very much. So, Jairik, I would like to ask you three questions.
Hmm?
First one is, what are the three branches of government?
But I think there is a legislature,
Mhm.
legislative branch, and executive and the judiciary.
Thank you very much. So, do you know what each branch does?
Well, I'm not sure if I'm correct, but I think one deals with making laws, another one with justice, another one with enforcing laws, I think. Yeah.
Thank you very much for the answer. Then another question is, Democrats and Republicans are the major parties. Can you name a third party?
Well, I think a third party are those minor parties which are moving, but I'm not sure.
Thank you. But the last question is, what is the basic process by which a bill becomes a law?
I think it is all made in the house, but I'm not sure about those process, about those steps.
Thank you for your participation.
Thanks for having me.
My name is Patrick Seman and I am a student in the Bachelor of Arts program with College for America at Southern New Hampshire University, and I am conducting this interview as part of my academic work. I will record this interview and use the information. So this interview will be submitted to College for America so that my work as an interviewer can be evaluated. This work will be used solely for this purpose. The interview information will be temporarily stored in the College for America online evaluation system, to which only the evaluator and College for America staff will have access.
Hi Henry, I give my informed consent to participate in this interview to be recorded as a part of the student academic evaluation.
Thank you very much. So, Henry, I would like to ask you three questions.
Yes.
And the first one is, what are the three branches of government?
I think there's the executive, judicial, and the third one I don't remember.
Okay, thank you. So, do you know what each branch?
I think for the judicial, it's about the justice in the country, and the executive, if I'm sure, is about enforcing the law. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And then another question is, Democrats and Republicans are the major parties. Can you name a third party?
I think the third part, there are many, those are the very small parties that they have very few people. Yeah, that's what I think.
Ah, thank you. Then the last question is, what is the basic process by which a bill becomes a law?
I think they discussed it in the house and they have this kind of argument with people about it. So I think that's how it comes to the law.
Oh. Thank you very much for your participation.
You're welcome.
Well, after doing the street interview and asking people the questions about the three branches of government and what does each do, and even how a bill becomes a law and the third part in the United States of America, then the people I asked, they tried to give me good answers to those questions because um, one of them was aware of the three branches of government, but he was struggling to answer what each branch does. And another one gave me like two branches, and they also told me how what they do, but they also giving the answers to the next questions, the third party and how a bill becomes a law, they were struggling to give me good answers. So I think now I get the opportunity to explain and give clear answers on those questions. So I will start with the three branches of government. So the three branches of government is the executive, and it includes the president, and yeah, that's where the president is, and other workers. So there is also legislative, and legislative, it includes the Senate and House of Representatives, and even the judicial, which has the Supreme Court and even the lower courts. So I'm going to define them while also telling you what each branch does. So in the executive, the President of the United States administers the executive branch of the United States government, and the President enforces the rules that the legislative branch, which is the Congress, makes. So the President is elected by United States citizens, 8 years and older, who vote in the presidential elections in their states. So these votes are tallied by states and from the electoral college system. States have the number of electoral votes which equal the number of senators and representatives they have. It is possible to have the most popular votes throughout the nation and not win the elections or the electoral vote of the electoral college. That is possible. So that's what the executive does. It's headed by the president who administers it, and what they do is to enforce the laws that the legislative branch makes. So the legislative part of the United States government is called Congress, and Congress makes laws. Congress is divided into two parts. There is the Senate, which has 100 senators, 2 from each of the states. Another part is called the House of Representatives. So representatives meet together to discuss ideas and decide if those ideas, which are also called bills, if they should become laws. So there are, in the United States of America, there are 435 representatives. The number of representatives each state gets is determined by its population. Some states have just 2 representatives, others have as many as 40. So both senators and representatives are elected by the eligible voters in the states. So the third branch is the judicial, and the judicial part of Federation of USA, it includes the Supreme Court and 9 justices. So they are special judges who interpret laws according to the Constitution. So these justices only hear cases that pertain to issues related to the Constitution. They are the highest court in the country. The federal judicial system also has lower courts located in each state to hear cases involving federal issues. So all 3 parts that I've been explaining of the federal government have their main headquarters in the city of Washington, D.C. So the next question, Democrats and Republicans are the major parties. Can you name a third part? So the third part I can name, aside from those 2 major parties, is 3 minor national parties, a wide variety of smaller single issue or regional parties, and the option for candidates to run independently from any political party. So the 3 big third parties are the Libertarian Party, the Green Party, and the Constitutional Party. Those are the 3. There are 3 which make the big third part: the Libertarian Party, the Green Party, and the Constitution Party. So about how the 2-party system started, so I can give a little bit of history about that. In 1789, the United States of America didn't have a two-party system. It had George Washington, a president who had no party. So during his 2 terms, a rivalry grew between John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, who were both Federalists. Jefferson challenged Adams under the banner of the Democratic Republican Party. Interesting that this first real party alone should contain the nominal seeds of the present two-party system. That's the Democratic Republican Party. It gave birth to two-party system. So the word democratic implies will of the people, and the word Republican implies rule of law. So the Democratic Republicans kept the presidents from 1800s through 1828. In 1828, the popular war hero Andrew Jackson became the first president from a new party. That was the Democrats, the true party of the people. That's how they called it. With the exception of one term when the Whigs, which was also a party whose name more clearly identified itself as the party of privilege than the Democratic Republicans whom they replaced. So they won the presidency, and the Democrats, and they held the White House until 1860, from 1828 to 1860. So then the Northern abolitionist movement gave birth to a new party in 1856, the Republicans. Abraham Lincoln was their first successful candidate for president in 1860. And the Northern they were anti-slavery and pro-business. So they were Republicans and they were anti-slavery. They held the White House through 1912, with the exception of the Democrat Grover Cleveland, who had 2 non-consecutive terms. And in 1864, it marked the beginning of the two-party system of Democrats and Republicans. So we've had that the Democrats were born in 1828, and then the Northern abolitionist movement gave birth to a new party, which was the Republicans, in 1825. And since then, they were replacing each other in the White House as presidents. So what impact do third parties have on national politics? Third parties focus attention on issues and ideas. Sometimes they draw. He was talking about the role that the third parties have on national politics. I was talking about how they draw enough support to affect the outcome of elections. Sometimes a third party gains part of its goals by supporting a major party that promises to act on the third party's views. That's how they mainly impact national politics. So what is the basic process by which a bill becomes a law? So if a bill has passed in both the US House of Representatives and the US Senate and has been approved by the president, or if a presidential veto has been overridden, the bill becomes a law and is enforced by the government. But I would like to go through some of the steps that this bill becomes a law. So the step number 1, a bill is born. Anyone may draft a bill, however, only members of Congress can introduce legislation, and by doing so, they become the sponsors, or whoever drafts a bill becomes the sponsor of that bill. So the president, who is the member and a member of the cabinet or the head of a federal agency, can also propose legislation, although a member of Congress must. So step number 2, there is the subcommittee review. So often bills referred to as subcommittee for study and hearings. So hearings provide the opportunity to put on the record, to record on the record the views of the executive branch, the experts, other public officials, and supporters and opponents of the registration. And another step, the next step is committee action to report a bill. After receiving a subcommittee's report on a bill, the full committee votes on its recommendation to the House or Senate. This procedure is called ordering a bill reported, then which gives to another step, which is the referral to other chamber. So when the House or Senate passes a bill, it is referred to the other chamber, where it usually follows the same route through committee and floor action. This chamber may approve the bill as received, reject it, ignore it, or change it. Then the final step is the final action. So after both the House and Senate have approved the bill in identical form, it is sent to the President. If the President approves of the registration, he signs it and it becomes a law. Or if the President takes no action for 10 days while Congress is in session, it automatically becomes law. If the President opposes the bill, he can veto it. Or if he takes no action after the Congress has adjourned its second session, it is a pocket veto and the registration dies. So thank you very much. That was all about the questions that we had to answer.